Linda Coltman. As Margaret mentioned in the introduction, I'm a member of Voices from the Street. That's a Toronto-based speakers bureau comprised of people who've had direct experience with homelessness, poverty, and or mental health issues. I've also been a tenant of affordable rent-to-income housing in Toronto for a little over 20 years, having received a priority housing placement after spending 8 months in a shelter. At that time, I was a teenager faced with having to adapt to becoming suddenly and unexpectedly acutely ill, and finding a lack of adequate social supports meant that I would have to adapt to being homeless, in acute kidney failure, and becoming reliant on an imperfect social system to support and assist me. As part of my advocacy work, I've also spent the past few years working with tenants groups in a campaign to address the issues of disrepair within affordable housing communities. And in doing so, meeting with MPPs, other politicians, media personalities, and members of the general public to speak to issues of capital repair deficits in this province. As when social housing was downloaded to the municipalities in 2001, it was done so without the provision of funding to cover the cost of much needed repairs, placing tenants in homes, but often in homes that too didn't meet their basic needs for safety and security. Tied in with such, in Toronto community housing alone, this shortfall that we're advocating for amounted to over $300 million. And while the current government has made provisions to address some of the need, there's still a vast provincial shortfall amounting to over $1 billion in outstanding capital repair cost funding for affordable housing communities for the people who've actually been given housing. To address this issue, I would argue that it's paramount to the strategy being devised to ensure that a sufficient supply of stable, good quality housing throughout the province is provided in good state of repair up to safety standards and property standards without overcrowding. 2, as indicated, much of what led to my personal experiences with homelessness and housing need arose out of a lack of adequate social supports to help me remain with my family and receive the care that I needed within that home environment while I was in health crisis. While my situation was somewhat unique and dependent upon multiple convergent factors, I still do believe that an overarching need of the strategy is to have one devised that addresses the need for the provision of housing supports, programs, and protections to ensure that all Ontarians can equitably access and maintain stability within their homes. Lastly, tied in with ensuring that the system that is developed does truly work to meet the needs of those it is meant to serve, I believe that it is critical for such to be devised to include the development of indicators as a means of measuring progress through a monitoring process that fully engages all communities throughout the province. I'm grateful that the provincial government has acknowledged an intent and a need to address the housing issues in affiliation with the poverty reduction strategy that it has going. But I'm hopeful that such also brings about required change that will make a difference to people like me who find them in situations needing help. And speaking from experience of real day-to-day issues of housing needs. People with experience with housing needs, I'm sorry, I get nervous when I'm in the mic standing in front of a crowd. I feel it's important for people with experience to day-to-day issues of housing need make their voices heard, to encourage our elected politicians to formulate a strategy that works and really and truly works to address the real need of getting at reducing long waiting lists and offering people housing and related supports that they require in a timely manner without putting them through a lot of bureaucracy and trauma at the hands of institutionalized systems first. As speakers, we at Voices from the Street work to put a human face to homelessness and related issues and involve people with direct experience as leaders in the public education process. Categorically, I fit into the class that most would be considered to be among the marginalized of society, belonging to the demographic for whose voice is seldom heard, and generally among those stereotyped not to be considered serious candidates to speak with knowledge or expertise to homelessness and housing need, poverty, and or related to social determinants of health matters. Voices from the Street provided us with 12 weeks of extensive training in public speaking, leadership, conflict resolution, diversity, and facilitation skills to enable us as participants to follow our own paths, to raise our voice and speak from knowledge and experience in order to educate the public to push for change. Through the instruction period, I sought to find my voice, to become more trusting of sharing my personal story and becoming an effective speaker in order to become an efficient educator and proactive agent of change. And I still to this day find it very hard to stand in front of you and speak from that personal experience and offer that disclosure to my bout of homelessness and the systemic problems that led to it, and try to advocate on that personal story. I don't propose to know all the answers, but I do want to make a difference, and that's why I'm here today, despite my nerves. And for the many people like me in the province, we're not asking for a handout, but we're asking for a hand up, simply to be afforded with real opportunities, such as those that having stable and affordable housing creates the foundation for, in order that we can develop our talents and abilities and essentially receive a step towards increased self-esteem, personal community, and understanding to our past and our living conditions. There are a number of key issues that I think the government needs to hear during the upcoming Toronto consultations on the creation of a long-term affordable housing strategy. The format of the housing consultation as it stands seeks to answer 5 questions that speak to the public, asking the public to provide pragmatic, specific, and affordable solutions to assist in building this plan. The Housing Network of Ontario, which Voices from the Street and other partners on this panel are part of, has devised a list of solutions within the context of documents that are made available to you up front today. I'm here to speak to the issues of those of us with lived experience, to go into those consultations and speaking up to have our voice heard within the context, like me, of true experience. And as I'm in front of you, I'm asking you to all also as well go and raise your voice and share your personal insights. As a brief recap, though, of the points that I think are important, drawn from my personal experience, I think the government should be outlining a strategy that assesses 4 key priorities. That of the provision of affordable housing, a sufficient supply of stable, good quality housing in a good state of repair, of housing supports, programs, and protections, and that of developing indicators as a means of measuring progress. Within that framework, I want to see investments made in permanent provincial affording housing programs to fund the construction of affordable housing and supportive homes in all communities, ensuring that flexibility and income support programs is available to enable people to adjust to their living situations, ensure investments in regular repair and ongoing maintenance of existing and new affordable housing, the provision of emergency relief for people that find themselves in crisis situations such as I did, a full upload of municipal share of social housing programs to the province, appropriate discharge plans for all people leaving shelters, hospital, mental health, correctional facilities, and likewise that includes stable, equitable, accessible, and affordable housing. Through community-based partnerships, a fund and location of programs and services in community areas that can actually respond to different needs so that people like me aren't left in jeopardy trying to fight a bureaucratic nightmare without the supports that they need. Use of various indicators to be tied into a strategy that's devised that would generate annual targets for a new supply of affordability measures, repair initiatives, and other housing programs and services. Ensuring a semi-annual public review, progress on meeting targets. Also, partnership funding for community-based housing networks across the province to ensure that low-income tenants like myself and advocates are also able to effectively engage in ongoing monitoring, evaluation, and feedback as part of the process. Again, my personal desire and expectation is to see great leadership united in all orders of the government, working in all sectors, and especially with people like me living on low incomes that have then had the experience of being part of the process, so that we can create opportunities, remove barriers, and provide support so that everyone in the province can live with dignity. We're faced with serious systemic structural issues and problems requiring creative solutions in this province. There are growing numbers of homeless people, crowded hospitals, and long waiting lists for social housing. And I stand before you as a person with lived experience to homeless, disability, and poverty, as an advocate speaking and seeking to be part of the solution. And my hope is that all of you present will join my fellow Voices from the Street graduates and I in being part of that process to eliminate those aspects of unequitable social status, inequitable social relationships, experience of social exclusion, dependency, and diminished capacity to participate that mark the lives of those living in poverty and housing need in Ontario. Thank you for listening.